This is channel Xianxia Audio. Please support me a subscription. This is the series I'm Not a Theater God. Chapter 121, Parting Ways. In this world, the only organizations that can accommodate fusion persons are the Fusion faction and the Twilight Society. The Fusion faction is entirely composed of fusion persons, but its members generally have a fanatical reverence for fusion and evolution, believing that the divine path is a shortcut not belonging to the direction of human evolution. If you were a member of the Fusion faction, you would never have debated good and evil with me just now. Instead, you would have urged me to abandon the divine path and embrace true evolution. Han Meng's voice was very calm, as if trying to strike at the deepest secret in Chen Ling's heart. Therefore, you are from the Twilight Society. Hearing this, Chen Ling's brows under his mask slightly furrowed. He hadn't expected that Han Meng, seemingly silent, was actually waiting for him to speak first and lower his guard. The reason he only mentioned the Zhangtian sect and the Twilight Society just now, and not the Fusion faction, was probably a hook he laid to discern which faction Chen Ling belonged to. Can I not belong to any faction? Chen Ling retorted. Of course you can. Han Meng paused for a moment. I admit I took a gamble, but it seems I should have gambled correctly. Chen Ling. He's trying to trick me again, isn't he? Chen Ling recalled the first time Han Meng bluffed him. He had avoided it the first time, but he didn't expect to fall for it the second time. Han Meng, that old schemer, he should have just left earlier. The longer he stayed with him, the more flaws he would expose. However, even though his Twilight Society identity was exposed, Chen Ling wasn't too flustered. After all, even if Han Meng hadn't probed him, he would have found an opportunity to reveal his identity as a Twilight Society member. The dark mask stared at Han Meng for a long time, then let out a light chuckle, as if he had discovered something interesting. You are very clever. Have you considered joining the Twilight Society? No, Han Meng refused decisively. Why? Because I am an enforcement officer, and you are criminals who seek to destroy the world. We just want to restart the world. On the dark mask, the crimson eyes stared at Han Meng. You yourself said that enforcement officers don't represent good, so why do you think we are criminals? Restarting the world, isn't that destroying it? If the world isn't destroyed, how can it be restarted? Chen Ling was stunned. Even if the Aurora domain is rotten to the core, it still shelters millions of people, and enforcement officers exist to protect the realm. Han Meng met the mosque's gaze and replied calmly. I don't care about other enforcement officers, but I, Han Meng, will fulfill my duty to the end. A cold wind swept across the gray sky. On the barren land, a black trench coat and a crimson opera robe stood facing each other, flapping in the wind. In that case, you may leave. A cold voice came from behind the mask. The reason Chen Ling wanted to expose his identity as a Twilight Society member was to see if it was possible to draw Han Meng into the Twilight Society. Because he felt that Han Meng was out of place with the entire enforcement system of the Aurora domain. A super genius who was oppressed, neglected, and demoted to outside Aurora City should be a suitable target for poaching. But Han Meng's answer left him somewhat regretful, yet it was also within his expectations. Han Meng also knew that the other party saving him was probably to see if he could be drawn into the Twilight Society. But with his clear refusal, the other party had completely lost interest in him. He didn't kill him on the spot but instead let him leave, which was already beyond Han Meng's expectations. The information that needed to be gathered had been gathered, and Han Meng said no more. He took one last look at the crimson opera robe fluttering in the wind, then turned and walked towards the Grey Realm Junction from which he had come. In this gray world, two figures, one black and one red, went their separate ways. As the black figure gradually disappeared into the distance, at the edge of the horizon, a series of shaking giant shadows once again approached the direction Han Meng had left. The ground slightly trembled, seemingly foretelling the arrival of some disaster. Above the desolate land, the crimson opera robe swayed silently. The dark mask gazed in that direction, and after a long time, he shook his head helplessly. Ellipsis. Hearing the distant roars, Han Meng's heart sank. Sure enough, the reason he had been able to walk safely in the Grey Realm for so long was because he stayed by the mysterious red-clothed man's side. Now that he had left his vicinity, disaster had targeted him. After resting for so long, Han Meng's body had mostly recovered. He took a deep breath. and his figure shot into the air like a black arrow. It wasn't far from the Grey Realm Junction where he had arrived. With full effort, he should be able to return before those disasters caught up. As Han Meng's figure gradually ascended, he could already see the gray vortex suspended in the air, but around the vortex, numerous waves of shadows were frantically surging into it. These were the shadow centipedes that had previously fought with Han Meng. Seeing this, Han Meng's heart sank. They went back? These shadow centipedes suddenly went mad, ran from the 3rd district back to the Grey Realm, and halfway through, they seemed to lose their target, wandering for a long time before choosing to return the way they came. Moreover, judging by their numbers, at least 100 of them had already burrowed back. A hint of urgency flashed in Han Meng's eyes. He rushed towards the Grey Realm Junction at full speed, but he was still too far away. He had only flown halfway when all the shadow centipedes had already moved away. Damn it, Han Meng endured the severe pain of his wounds and accelerated again, plunging into the gray vortex. A familiar sense of dizziness washed over him. Han Meng felt a stumble under his feet, and his body had already returned to the steel factory. The steel factory, now scarred and desolate, was utterly silent. Through the dense holes, no trace of any shadow centipede could be seen. They all seemed to have left. Han Meng rushed out of the factory building and barely saw a few wisps of black shadows disappearing into the thick fog. That direction was where the district was located. These shadow centipedes must have known that Han Meng was trapped in the canyon and that no one in the 3rd district could stop them. So they directly launched a surprise attack. And indeed, this was the case. Without Han Meng, it was impossible for anyone in the 3rd district to stop a 5th-order disaster. Han Meng's heart had sunk to rock bottom. He knew that even if he rushed to the 3rd district now, it would be too late. The sub-entities had already dispersed into various streets within the district. No matter how strong Han Meng was, he couldn't be in multiple places at once. By the time he eliminated all the sub-entities one by one, they would have already massacred most of the 3rd district. Han Meng clenched his fists tightly. He tried to calm his emotions, just as he was about to rush out and forcibly defeat them one by one. Light footsteps came from behind him. Han Meng abruptly turned his head and saw the familiar opera robe, which had appeared at the top of the factory building at some unknown time, gently fluttering. "Why are you here?" Han Meng frowned, asking in a low voice. "The Grey Realm is too boring. I came out for some fresh air." On the dark mask, the exaggerated smiling face was partially obscured by the thick fog. He looked down at Han Meng below him and spoke faintly. "And to give you a reminder." "A reminder?" "Light the torch. They will come because of it." Chen Ling slowly spread his arms, his large red sleeves opening like butterfly wings in the wind, embracing the sky as he fell forward. The next moment, his figure transformed into countless flying paper butterflies, soaring overwhelmingly into the distance. Amidst the sky full of paper butterflies, a playing card gently floated down onto the ground in front of Han Meng. It was a Red Heart 6. Chapter 122, Lighting the Torch. Han Meng was stunned. He watched Chen Ling disappear into the thick fog, and only after a moment did he suddenly snap back to reality. "Light the torch?" He repeated the phrase, as if he had thought of something, and squinted at the factory area in front of him. Han Meng hesitated for a moment, debating whether to trust Chen Ling, a Twilight Society member, but quickly came to a conclusion. Although he didn't know why Chen Ling would help him, at least, he had no reason to lie to himself. Given the situation, Han Meng decided to take a gamble. "What are the casualties like?" Shi Renji returned to the street with weary steps. "We're still counting. The number of casualties is too high, we can't calculate it all at once." An enforcer said bitterly, but conservatively, the casualties in the 3rd district this time account for at least 1/3 of the total population. 1/3, huh? Shi Renji nodded slightly. "Any news from Han Meng, chief?" "Not yet. We've been calling, but there's been no response." Shi Renji's heart sank slightly. He instinctively looked in the direction of the steel factory. The thick fog still flowed quietly, and no one knew what lay behind it. Just as he was about to say something, a rustling sound suddenly came from a distance. "Did you hear anything? It sounds like it's getting closer to us. Why do I feel like the ground is shaking?" "Number, scatter quickly." In Shi Renji's vision, a giant shadow outlined itself from the depths of the thick fog. He immediately roared, and several people quickly retreated. Boom! A massive shadow centipede crashed through the thick fog, directly crushing the surrounding residential houses into ruins. The residents hidden within didn't even have time to scream before they turned into puddles of flesh. Under everyone's terrified gaze, a giant myriad-legged centipede raised its head, its dark red orifices opening, and countless shadows extended from them like branches, reaching out to the people on the street. The attack came too suddenly. No one expected such a massive shadow centipede to appear in a district that had been mostly cleared. Most didn't have time to escape and were caught by the shadows. Their hands stiffly rose, fiercely gripping their own necks, straining with all their might, twisting their skin and blood vessels out of shape. Crimson blood vessels spread over their eyeballs, and their breathing gradually ceased. Finally, they became stiff corpses, falling into the surging wave of shadows, instantly swallowed without a trace. Seeing this, those who were lucky enough to escape were stunned. Xianxia stared fixedly at the massive shadow, his heart sinking to the bottom. Meng. This shadow centipede was most likely the mother that Han Meng mentioned. Since the mother had broken out of the factory and appeared here, it meant that Han Meng had died in battle. Despair was evident in Xianxia's eyes. With Han Meng dead, unless someone from Aurora City arrived, who else in the 3rd district could stop this mother? He had cleared the streets with all his might, yet he still ended up in such a predicament. Xianxia stood there, ashen-faced, like a puppet without a soul. Boom! Just then, a towering torch ignited from the depths of the thick fog, burning fiercely like a miniature sun. The flame was so massive and hot that even from such a distance, its light was visible. The shadow centipedes surging into the district simultaneously stopped and abruptly turned to look in the direction of the flame. The mother that had crushed the houses also turned, its dark red orifices gazing at the torch. It let out an unhesitating shriek, abandoning the people in the district in front of it, and rushed directly towards the torch, with a dense wave of shadows following closely behind. The people, still in shock, were now utterly bewildered. They stared blankly in the direction where the calamities had retreated, still not having fully recovered their senses. Let's go see. Xianxia was the first to regain his composure and quickly chased into the thick fog. The other enforcers exchanged glances, and only a small portion chose to follow. As they continued forward, the torch became clearer in the thick fog. Chief Shi, a black-clad figure, ran out from the crowd and followed beside Xianxia. Qianling? Xianxia said in surprise when he saw the person. Why are you here too? I was resting, and when I saw a sudden fire here, I immediately rushed over, Qianling said, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Xianxia scrutinized Qianling, and after confirming he was fine, he nodded. There might be danger ahead. Be careful. The outline of the factory gradually appeared in everyone's vision. The towering torch was burning from within the ravaged workshop of the steel factory. All the high-temperature melting furnaces in the workshop were shattered on the ground, and raging flames ignited the entire factory building. The steel supports melted in the extremely hot fire, looking like a sun burning on the ground from afar. In the raging flames, the 2 lines of gilded words originally engraved at the entrance, open black lens bracket forging steel bones through 1,000 hammers and 100 refinements close black lens bracket and open black lens bracket hard work is most glorious close black lens bracket, gradually vanished. Only the golden characters at the very top remained. And beneath the slogan open black lens bracket all for humanity close black lens bracket, a black-clad figure stood before the sea of fire. A burning cigarette dangling from his lips, his eyes sharp as he watched the surging wave of shadows. It actually attracted them? Han Meng murmured to himself. He looked at the ground beside him, where the Red Heart 6 playing card was being ignited by a falling flame, slowly burning to ashes. Owing another favor, huh? Han Meng sighed deeply. He raised his gun, aiming at the rapidly approaching centipede mother. Under the oppressive aura of the mother, Han Meng's own aura began to climb steadily. Perhaps it was because he had broken through and then stood firm. Or perhaps the raging fire behind him ignited Han Meng's renewed fighting spirit. But he felt a certain restriction deep within his body begin to loosen, like a giant wave constantly crashing against a dam, about to burst forth. Bang! A soft sound came from within Han Meng's body, and terrifying psychic energy surged out. On that black, towering divine path, Han Meng's suspended foot finally landed heavily on the 5th step. His aura instantly became even more dazzling than the burning factory, and even the rapidly approaching shadow centipede mother instinctively stopped. But at this moment, it was already too late for them to retreat. Because the black-clad figure in front of the sea of fire had slowly raised his gun, aiming at the overwhelming wave of shadows. This time, it's my turn. Chapter 123, Cardinal Sin Judgment. Meng Jie advanced? Feeling the strong aura fluctuations from Han Meng, Shi Renji's eyes were filled with surprise. Previously, when he saw the shadow centipede attacking the district, Shi Renji thought Han Meng had already died in battle. He didn't expect him to not only be alive but also to have advanced to the 5th stage of the judgment path. Han Meng should now be the first enforcement officer to reach the 5th stage. Not just in the 3rd district, but in the entire 7 districts. Chen Ling stood in the crowd, watching this scene with great interest. He was also very curious. What exactly was the skill of the 5th stage of the judgment path? As Han Meng raised his gun, the daylight in the mist dimmed slightly. Before the raging flames, the flying black trench coat suddenly exuded an irresistible majesty, like an absolute master within its range, like a judgment gun staring into the abyss. Cardinal Sin Judgment. Court is now in session. The moment Han Meng's voice fell, complex patterns spread wildly beneath his feet, instantly covering the ground within the Court of Judgment's range. The surging wave of shadows suddenly stopped. The next moment, the rocks and soil beneath them were deconstructed and reorganized, turning into chains that simultaneously bound them, forcing them to prostrate on the spot. Even the mother, who was also a 5th stage entity, was not spared. More than 10 extremely thick chains coiled like snakes around her body. Even though she was sprinting forward with all her might, her speed was gradually slowed down until she was finally restrained on the ground 100 meters in front of Han Meng. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the entire Shadow Centipede tribe prostrated on the ground before the raging flames. Like countless defendants awaiting judgment, locked in prisoners' chairs. At this moment, the scorching flames illuminated half of Han Meng's face, casting a blade-like shadow. He was the judge of this court of judgment, and also the only being capable of free movement within this realm. Unbeknownst to anyone, a dark red hue had appeared in his pupils. Those eyes, which seemed to see through everything, gazed at the entire tribe prostrated on the ground. After a long while, a low voice, like an unquestionable oracle, echoed above the prostrating tribe. In court, Ghost Mach Abyss, offspring of the Centipede tribe's 8th insect lord. Invading the realm, slaughtering civilians, devouring human bodies. Cardinal Sin Judgment. Guilty. Guilty of immolation. As his voice fell, Han Meng calmly pulled the trigger. Click. A soft sound came from the gun barrel, but no bullet flew out. At the same time, the raging flames behind Han Meng seemed to come alive. A scorching pillar of fire, dozens of meters thick, erupted, like the raging flame judgment sword of the fire god wrathfully striking down upon the human world. Crashing down upon the prostrating wave of shadows. Boom! The surging fire waves instantly engulfed hundreds of shadow centipedes. Their shrill roars overlapped, almost tearing eardrums. Those black shadows struggled wildly in the dancing fire waves, like shackled prisoners dancing. Everyone outside the sea of fire stared blankly at this scene, their minds greatly shaken. Hundreds of shadow centipedes had almost wiped out half of the 3rd district, and Han Meng, with just one pull of the trigger, had annihilated them all in a sea of fire. This was the first time they had witnessed a 5th stage powerhouse in action. And also the first time they had so directly felt the terror of the judgment path. Chen Ling, what's wrong? Hearing the repeated swallowing sounds from beside him, Shi Renji turned his head in confusion. No, nothing. Chen Ling closed his eyes to hide the longing in his pupils. He clutched his head and said hoarsely, I'm a little unwell, I'll leave for a bit. As his voice fell, without waiting for Shi Renji to say anything more, he quickly moved away from the battlefield. Chen Ling found an uninhabited area and frantically stuffed dirt into his nose, preventing himself from smelling the fragrant chicken. Only then did he slightly relax. Recalling that scene, Chen Ling suddenly felt that his decision to replicate a judgment path was an incredibly correct one. The sea of fire was burning, and a large number of shadow centipedes were burned to death within it. The mother, prostrated on the ground, roared in rage, her massive body suddenly twisting, forcefully breaking the chains binding her, and charging wildly towards Han Meng. Han Meng's shot had judged all the offspring present. But the mother, as a fifth-stage calamity, naturally couldn't be burned to death so easily. Her body stirred up a fierce wind, briefly tearing open a path without fire in the sea of flames. Her dark red orifices spewed out, and dense shadows, like countless tentacles, simultaneously grabbed at the black-clad figure. Han Meng's figure slightly hunched, and the next moment he transformed into an afterimage. Rushing into the sky, the countless shadow tentacles missed on the ground and then closely followed him into the clouds. Han Meng, in midair, narrowed his eyes, his dark red pupils looking down, once again locking onto the massive centipede mother. Under the howling wind, his gun barrel was raised again. Ghost Mach Abyss, 8th insect lord of the centipede tribe, guilty of a grave crime, to be annihilated. As Han Meng pulled the trigger, the power of deconstruction, like an invisible sword, crashed down from the sky, instantly annihilating the shadow tentacles that had almost grabbed his ankle into nothingness. The mother also seemed to sense extreme danger, her figure swiftly crawling to the side to dodge, but she was still shattered in half by this shot. Having reached the 5th stage, Han Meng's strength had entered a new level. The range of shattering material structures had been magnified several times. As he pulled the trigger repeatedly, gigantic pits with radii of dozens of meters appeared silently on the ground, as if an invisible meteor shower was falling. Is this the 5th stage? Shi Renji looked at the black-clad figure battling the mother, his eyes filled with longing. The other enforcers also stared blankly at this scene, as if looking up at a deity. But at this moment, Chen Ling was thinking about something else. If a 5th stage enforcement officer already possessed such terrifying combat power, how strong would those high-stage enforcement officers in Aurora City be? Under Han Meng's judgment, the mother's body was already shattered beyond recognition. While dodging the power of deconstruction, she rapidly crawled towards the Grey Realm convergence point deep within the steel factory. She was afraid. At this point, she was no match for Han Meng. Her only way out was to escape back to the Grey Realm. But Han Meng would not give her this chance. As the mother stumbled through the sea of fire, seeing the deep pit getting closer and closer to her, a black-clad figure descended from the sky, landing steadily in front of the giant pit, his dark gun barrel aimed at the dark red orifice on the mother's head. I uphold the justice of human civilization. I judge you to death. Bang! The mother's massive head was instantly annihilated into nothingness. Like an eraser had passed over it, leaving only an incredibly clean break. Crimson blood seeped from the shattered body, and she fell heavily to the ground. Flames licked her body, gradually turning it into charcoal. Under everyone's anxious gaze, the tattered black-clad figure staggered out. Seeing this, everyone immediately breathed a sigh of relief and cheered. They crowded around the slowly approaching black-clad figure, their eyes filled with worship and reverence. Han Meng silently walked out of the crowd. As he passed Chen Ling and Shi Renji, he lowered his voice and said, "You two, follow me." Chapter 124 Chen Ling. Why do you look so pale? Han Meng walked through the blood-soaked ruins of the street, heading straight for the enforcer headquarters, where many figures were busily rushing about, tallying the number of casualties from the attack. They saw the 3 enforcement officers walking in together and respectfully bowed in greeting. As an enforcer hurried forward, Meng Jie, the approximate casualty count has been tallied. Han Meng stopped. How is it? The enforcer flipped through the documents and said, roughly, the number of fatalities in this attack is around 7,000. Besides that, at least 8,000 people are severely injured and are currently being rescued. And over 10,000 have minor injuries. Among them, Han Shuang Street had the fewest casualties, with almost everyone surviving. Han Feng Street and Han Shui Street followed. Upon hearing this number, Shi Renji subtly breathed a sigh of relief. It was much better than he had anticipated. Han Meng was slightly startled and looked at Chen Ling beside him with surprise. He naturally knew whose jurisdiction Han Shuang Street was, and even Han Shui Street was adjacent to Han Shuang Street. The low casualty rates in these 2 streets were mostly due to Chen Ling. For an enforcement officer who had just been promoted to achieve this level, it truly astonished him. Chen Ling also noticed Han Meng's gaze and met his eyes. The latter then looked away, nodded slightly to the enforcer, and took the documents in his hand. I understand. You all continue with your work. With that, he led Chen Ling and Shi Renji into the innermost office, closed the door, and pulled the curtains shut. In the quiet office, Han Meng's expression visibly grew solemn. Meng Jie, what's wrong? Seeing this, Shi Renji asked, puzzled, didn't you kill all the disasters? Why are you still? This Grey Realm convergence is very unusual. Han Meng slowly sat down in his chair. Perhaps it was due to the immense mental energy consumed during the battle. But his face was filled with exhaustion. I entered the Grey Realm from the convergence point at the steel factory. You went to the Grey Realm? Shi Renji's eyes widened in shock. Yes, Han Meng nodded calmly. There is more than one Grey Realm convergence point corresponding to the 3rd district's spatial location in the Grey Realm. The one at the steel factory should have formed first, which is why its range is the largest, while the other convergence points are still small and currently insufficient to allow disasters to pass through. It's probably only a matter of time. At this point, Chen Ling also recalled that he had indeed seen those smaller convergence points in the Grey Realm. More than one Grey Realm convergence point? How is that possible? Shi Renji frowned deeply. I also find it impossible, especially since such a thing has never happened since the Aurora domain was established. But I know what I saw. So, does that mean this disaster attack hasn't ended? And there might be a second, a third one later? Chen Ling asked in return. Exactly. Chen Ling immediately felt a headache. A single 5th-tier disaster almost wiped out the 3rd district. If more were to come, how could the 3 of them possibly withstand it? That's why I haven't spread this information. I've only told the 2 of you. Han Meng slowly said, after this disaster attack, the 3rd district has suffered extremely severe casualties, and the public's emotions are also unstable. If they were to know, it might cause a riot. A moment later, Chen Ling suddenly spoke. Has there been no reply from Aurora City yet? No. Han Meng's face was solemn. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about next. I need to go to Aurora City myself. Upon hearing this, a hint of surprise flashed across Shi Renji's face, and he immediately said, go to Aurora City? By yourself? Indeed, at this point, there's no other way, Chen Ling mused. Since communication cannot be established, the only direct method is to communicate with them face to face. Fortunately, Aurora City is not particularly far from the 3rd district. Chen Ling is right. Han Meng nodded. I don't know if it's this fog that's disrupting communications, but Aurora City hasn't replied. However, this matter is too serious. If left unaddressed, the 3rd district might face a devastating calamity. We must report it to Aurora City as soon as possible and inform them to dispatch personnel for support. My speed is the fastest. I can go to Aurora City and back within a day. The 2 of you should maintain order in the 3rd district and wait for my return. Understood, Shi Renji replied solemnly. Han Meng was about to get up and leave, but as if he remembered something, he stopped. One more thing. What? A Twilight Society member crossed the Grey Realm and entered the 3rd district. As soon as this sentence was uttered, Shi Renji's expression instantly changed, and he repeated, both surprised and fearful, a Twilight Society member? Yes, a fusion person. His ability is very strange, he can even retain color in the Grey Realm. Shi Renji frowned deeply. After listening to Han Meng's description, his expression was a bit strange. Was he wearing red clothes? You saw him too? Han Meng's gaze sharpened. Shi Renji quickly recounted his encounter with the red-clothed man, and Han Meng listened intently. Chen Ling stood quietly to the side, eyes downcast, remaining silent. The abilities match, it seems to be the same person. Han Meng rubbed his chin with one hand. This usually intelligent and experienced enforcement officer rarely showed such deep confusion on his face. He's clearly a fusion person, yet he feeds on disasters. What kind of person is this Red Heart 6? They say Twilight Society members are all crazy, so eating disasters doesn't seem that strange, does it? A look of lingering fear appeared on Shi Renji's face. He hadn't expected to have a direct encounter with a Twilight Society member. But then again, those centipedes are so disgusting. How could he stomach them? Centipede? Chen Ling was startled. Those disasters from earlier, although they were all black and hard to see clearly, from their appearance, they should be centipedes, right? Shi Renji said uncertainly. They are centipedes, but they come from the ghost Mach abyss, and are merely a small offshoot of its insect species. Han Meng added. Ghost Mach abyss? Where's that? It should be somewhere in the Grey Realm. I'm not entirely sure of the specifics. All right, Chen Ling, why do you look so pale? Shi Renji asked, puzzled, as he saw Chen Ling's face was a bit white. It's nothing, I'm just a little tired, Chen Ling said hoarsely. Han Meng glanced at the time, didn't linger, and left the enforcer headquarters directly, transforming into a black streak of light that vanished into the thick fog. Shi Renji patted Chen Ling's shoulder, comforting him. Get some good rest. With that, he also turned and walked out of the room. Once Chen Ling was the only one left in the room, the overwhelming nausea he had desperately suppressed surged up, and he instantly clutched the trash can by the desk, dry heaving violently. Chapter 125 No response. Chen Ling knew that he had most likely been tricked by the audience again. In his vision, the 5th-tier centipede was still a large centipede, but the little centipedes scurrying everywhere were all chickens. At first, Chen Ling found it strange how a centipede could give birth to chickens. But as Shi Renji pointed it out just now, he finally realized something was off. The audience didn't change the image of the large centipede in his perception, but only changed the image of the little centipedes? Why? They knew he couldn't defeat the large centipede, so they only changed the little centipedes, wanting to trick him into eating them? Speaking of which, when he was eating those chickens, he did feel an indescribable sense of daze. The thought of having eaten something similar to the large centipede made Chen Ling feel a wave of nausea. He clutched the trash can and took several minutes to compose himself before finally calming down. He glanced at the ground beside him, and 2 lines of small text appeared. Open black lens bracket audience expectation plus 3 close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket current expectation, 39% close black lens bracket. These lunatics, Chen Ling cursed under his breath, then stood up and pushed the door open. Ellipsis. Han Meng's figure pierced through the thick fog like a black arrow, streaking across the sky. The streets of 3rd District grew increasingly distant, gradually disappearing into the mist. In this hazy world, it seemed as if he was the only one left. Aurora City is located at the center of the entire Aurora domain. The 7 districts cluster around it like satellites, forming a vast ring. This arrangement ensures that Aurora City is not too far from any of the major districts. But inter-district travel between the 7 districts becomes much more troublesome. But even if the distance isn't far, for a human, it's not something one can just walk to casually. In the past, there have been people who tried to walk from the 7 districts to Aurora City. But the 2 most difficult points were the extreme low temperatures and the incredibly rugged terrain. Large areas of frozen ground and glaciers crisscross the route, without sufficient supplies, relying solely on one's legs. Freezing to death on the road is almost an inevitable outcome. What's more, even if one reaches Aurora City, without the proper identity and qualifications to enter, they will still be turned away. Trying to return by the same route then becomes a hellish journey. The only way to connect Aurora City with the various districts is by steam train. And there is only 1 service per day. A round trip would inevitably take 2 days. Han Meng didn't have that much time. Or rather, 3rd District didn't have time. Fortunately, he possessed the ability to fly. In terms of speed alone, he was dozens of times faster than a steam train. Of course, this was assuming no consideration for mental energy consumption. After Han Meng was promoted to 5th tier, his total mental energy increased again, enough to support him flying the entire distance in one go. After an unknown amount of time, a black line, sprawling across the frozen ground, appeared at the end of the horizon within the hazy mist. It wasn't a line, but a city wall so long that it stretched as far as the eye could see. As Han Meng continuously approached, the city wall became increasingly grand. By the time he reached the city gate, it seemed like a towering wall supporting the very sky. Even ordinary people, looking up, couldn't see the highest point of this wall through the thin mist. And such a tall wall stretched for thousands of miles. Who? As soon as Han Meng reached the city gate, a low voice echoed. A man, also dressed in a black windbreaker, leaned against the wall, standing at the edge of the city gate. Like a guard of this gate, 4 shimmering silver patterns on the hem of his clothes sparkled. I am Han Meng, the law enforcement officer chief of 3rd District. Han Meng pulled out his identification and spoke seriously. I need to see Tan Xin. Han Meng? Hearing this name, the enforcement officer at the city gate narrowed his eyes slightly and replied coldly. Do you have documents to enter the city? Our communication channel can't even reach Aurora City. So of course, we don't have any documents. No documents, no entry. As the law enforcement officer chief, don't you understand this principle? 3rd District is experiencing a large-scale gray realm convergence. The situation is urgent. I need to go through special procedures. Special procedures. Are you, a mere enforcement officer from 3rd District, just going to do as you please? The enforcement officer replied unhurriedly. Go back. You won't be entering Aurora City today. Upon hearing this, Han Meng's gaze instantly turned cold. He couldn't be bothered to waste words with this person. And the court of judgment instantly opened. 5th tier mental energy surged out, suppressing the enforcement officer firmly in place. His pupils suddenly constricted, and he exclaimed, Han Meng, what do you want to do? I told you. Han Meng raised his gun, aiming it at the enforcement officer. I'm going through special procedures. Han Meng was still wearing the 4-patterned enforcement officer windbreaker, but the aura he was releasing now was undoubtedly that of a 5th tier. How could a place like the 7 districts produce a 5th tier enforcement officer? With Han Meng's gun aimed at him, cold sweat profusely beaded on the enforcement officer's forehead. At the same time, several enforcement officers on patrol rushed over. Seeing this scene, they were greatly alarmed and immediately surrounded Han Meng at the entrance. A major battle on the verge of breaking out. And Han Meng stood calmly amidst the encirclement. His gun steadily pointed at the enforcement officer at the gate. His eyes were like a winter lake, without the slightest emotional fluctuation. So much so that the enforcement officer truly suspected that if others made a move against Han Meng, the latter would indeed blow his brains out at the first opportunity. The enforcement officer gritted his teeth, staring at Han Meng for a long time, and finally spoke. I'll go ask Director Tan Xin for instructions. Ellipsis. Aurora City. Winter sunlight spilled into the courtyard. At the entrance of the tea house, Tan Xin, clad in a black windbreaker, unhurriedly scraped tea dregs with a teacup lid. Just then, a figure silently moved across the floor, respectfully crouching beside him. Teacher, it's been 8 hours since the fog began. Tan Xin placed the teacup on the small table, closed his eyes, and spoke calmly. How many of the 7 districts are left now? 3 hours ago, we were still receiving communications from 1st, 2nd, 3rd, District 6, and 7, a total of 5 districts. But until half an hour ago, the signals from 2nd District, District 6, and 7th District were also cut off. Only 1st District and 3rd District remain. The law enforcement officer chief of 1st District is Chang Feng, and 3rd District is Han Meng. These two do have some ability. Teacher, are we still not responding to them? The figure paused for a moment, then added, if we don't respond soon, I estimate these last 2 districts will also fall. Tan Xin opened his eyes, looked through the bright eaves at the clear sun high in the sky, and replied faintly. No response. Chapter 126, The Instigator. Upon hearing this reply, the figure paused, then hesitated before speaking. Are we really not going to save the 7 districts? Save? How do we save them? Tan Xin shook his head. Aurora Lord is already nearing his limit, and the entire realm is shrinking now. The 7 districts are located at the very edge of the realm, and the Aurora's retreat is only a matter of time. Even if we could send people to clear out those disasters now, could we forever prevent the Grey Realm from converging? In a few days, that place will become completely part of the Grey Realm, just like outside the realm. But nearly 300,000 people still live in the 7 districts. Which is more important, 300,000 people or the 3 million people in Aurora City? He took a small sip of the hot tea in his cup and slowly said, Aurora City is already in a difficult situation. It doesn't have the spare strength to desperately defend those people outside. Since that's the case, why waste effort? The figure still wanted to say something, but Tan Xin glanced at him and slowly began. Shiduo, you must understand that humans today are like a pack of wolves adrift on an ice field. We cannot guarantee that all wolves will make it to the other side of the ice field alive. When necessary, we must make sacrifices. Even if only one wolf reaches the destination alive in the end, the victory still belongs to the entire wolf pack. Chu Shiduo lowered his head, falling silent. Just then, an enforcement officer hurried into the room. He saw the 2 people inside and immediately spoke. Sir, Han Meng has arrived at Aurora City. What? Chu Shiduo looked up in surprise. Tan Xin, beside him, narrowed his eyes slightly, unhurriedly took a sip of tea, and retorted, "Where is he now?" "At the city gate, in a standoff with the enforcer guarding the city. He seems to have advanced to 5th stage." "Already 5th stage?" A hint of surprise finally flashed across Tan Xin's face, and then he couldn't help but exclaim. "It's only been a few years. And he's already reached 5th stage. This kind of talent is quite rare even in Aurora City. He's coming now, most likely because he didn't get a response to his communication and came directly to ask for help." Chu Shidia's mind was very clear, and he immediately analyzed Han Meng's purpose. "Teacher, what do we do now?" The corner of Tan Xin's mouth curved slightly upward. "Before, I was thinking about whether to bring him into Aurora City early, as it would be too regrettable for such a genius to die outside the city. But he is too stubborn. Even if I ordered him to enter the city, he probably wouldn't. I didn't expect him to deliver himself to our doorstep." "You mean, let him in?" Tan Xin replied indifferently. "However, once he's in, don't let him go back." "Understood." The enforcement officer immediately nodded, preparing to exit the door. "Wait." Tan Xin pondered for a moment. "Bring me a list of all enforcers and enforcement officers from 1st District and 3rd District." As the enforcement officer acknowledged the order and left, Chu Shiduo asked in confusion, "Teacher, what are you doing? Since 1st District and 3rd District have been able to hold on until now, it means there are still quite a few talented individuals in their enforcement system. If I'm not mistaken, the train from those 2 districts to Aurora City can still seat 30 people." Tan Xin replied calmly, "Aurora City cannot bear the burden of 300,000 people. But 30 people is still manageable. Are you trying to absorb a final batch of people from these 2 districts to alleviate the pressure on Aurora City?" "Precisely. We lost too many people in the Bingdao Ancient Treasury, we need to replenish them." As the two spoke, a list was handed to Tan Xin. Tan Xin's gaze swept over the list. He first circled all the enforcement officers on it, then handed the remaining names to Chu Shiduo. "All enforcement officers will occupy a seat. As for the other enforcers, you go let the people below pick first. After they've chosen, the remaining spots will be drawn randomly." The people below. Chu Shiduo thought for a moment. "You mean, among these people, there will be individuals from the Aurora City Enforcement Officer faction?" "Naturally. Every year when new recruits enter the Bingdao Ancient Treasury, there are always enforcers from the districts who establish connections with forces within Aurora City. If these enforcers have good talent, they will be absorbed into Aurora City. Even if their talent is insufficient, they will become informants for various forces left in the 7 districts." "Teacher, they are just a few enforcers. Will they really care?" "Whether they care or not isn't important. What's important is that this is my actively show goodwill." Tan Xin slowly said, "Times are different now. If Aurora City continues to be so chaotic and fragmented, everyone will die." Chu Shiduo seemed to understand something and nodded slightly. "Teacher, there's news from the Constellation Commerce Association." Chu Shiduo took out a letter from his pregnant and handed it to Tan Xin. "It's the result of the soul fragmentation search evidence. It is said that Xianxia has already withstood 3 rounds of soul fragmentation search evidence and has not yet lost his sanity." "Another monster who can withstand 3 rounds of soul fragmentation search evidence?" Tan Xin's eyebrows raised slightly. "Yes, teacher. His talent doesn't seem to be inferior to Han Meng's. Are you really not going to protect him?" "The Constellation Commerce Association's anger is hard to appease this time. I cannot protect this Jian Chongsheng. Everything depends on his own fate." Tan Xin took the letter, unfolded it, and after his gaze swept over it, a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. "Is there a discovery?" Chu Shiduo asked curiously. "Yes." Tan Xin closed the letter, a faint light flickering in his eyes, unsure what he was thinking. "Interesting. It seems an extraordinary fellow has sneaked into 3rd District. If it weren't for the soul fragmentation search evidence, he almost would have gotten away with it." "An interesting fellow? Who?" Tan Xin didn't answer but directly handed the letter to him. The latter looked at it for a few moments, his eyes widening in shock. Feigned death to escape, secretly planning, and then the Oriole behind him cleaning up the entire scene. This Chen Ling, the only one who survived the ancient treasury, is actually the instigator. Chu Shiduo turned to look at Tan Xin. "Teacher, what is this person's background?" His target was also the Dao Foundation of the Bingdao Ancient Treasury. "He's just one of those organization's people. But which one specifically is no longer important? Then I'll immediately issue a warrant? As soon as this sentence was uttered, Chu Shiduo also realized something was wrong. The 7 districts were about to fall. Where could a warrant be issued? Forget it. Don't worry about it. Tan Xin waved his hand, speaking casually. This Chen Ling is just a small fry. At this critical juncture, there's no need to waste energy on him. Small fry? Those above 4th stage cannot enter the Bingdao Ancient Treasury. Moreover, do you think he alone could safely leave the Bingdao Ancient Treasury's domain with the Dao Foundation fragments? And the 3 enforcement officers were completely unaware? He is merely a hand sent into the ancient treasury to retrieve the Dao Foundation. The truly troublesome individual should be the one who met him. So that's how it is. Remove Chen Ling's name from that list. This way, the people below will have one more spot. Tan Xin paused for a moment. If I'm not mistaken, besides Han Meng and this Chen Ling, 3rd district should still have an enforcement officer? Yes, there is a 2-mark enforcement officer named Shi Renji. When you send the list, also give him an order. Tan Xin set down his teacup and unhurriedly rose, walking towards the door. No matter what method he uses, eliminate this Chen Ling. Chapter 127, Abandonment. 3rd District. Chen Ling pushed open the door of the headquarters and stepped out. The thick fog still hadn't dissipated, like a pall hanging over everyone's hearts. Figures carrying stretchers hurried through the streets. On them were either cold, pale corpses or blood-stained, mutilated casualties. The once bustling district was now filled with painful groans and worried whispers. Chen Ling, wearing a black trench coat, stood on the steps at the entrance of the headquarters for a while. Then followed the stretchers, walking towards the other side of the street. Next to the enforcer headquarters was the largest clinic in the entire 3rd district. But despite being called the largest, its scale was only comparable to the rural clinics Chen Ling had seen in his previous life. The clinic had 2 floors, both of which were now crammed with groaning patients. Countless red and white stretchers covered the floor, leaving only half an arm's width for passage. The few doctors present were sweating profusely, weaving through the patients. Doctor, I beg you, please look at my child first. He seems to be losing his breath. Doctor, we're running out of gauze and disinfectant. The blood bank is almost empty. It hurts so much. I'm really in so much pain. Here's one with a wound infection. Can't save him. Prepare for amputation. Doctor, this patient has no vital signs. ... Groans and cries echoed one after another throughout the clinic. Outside, stretchers were laid out to the roadside, stretching from one end of the street to the other, with a continuous stream of people still being brought in. How many patients were waiting for treatment? 2,000? 3,000? Chen Ling had lost count. He stood at the clinic entrance, the only dark figure amidst a sea of white stretchers. His gaze swept over the scene, which resembled purgatory. His face showed no expression, as quiet as an unnoticed statue. A doctor, his hands covered in blood, walked out of the operating room. Several family members immediately rushed in. Seeing the cold corpse on the operating table, cries of pain instantly erupted. The doctor stood before the operating room, looking at the hellish scene inside the clinic, his eyes filled with endless sorrow and pity. This can't go on, he murmured to himself. Abandon all critically ill patients and those with severe blood loss. As soon as these words were spoken, all the other busy doctors froze, looking at him simultaneously. They seemed to want to say something but ultimately fell silent. Are we just going to watch them die? A nurse spoke hoarsely. We no longer have the time or resources to save them. The doctor closed his eyes. As for those whose injuries aren't too severe, gather them and explain the correct methods of disinfection and bandaging. Let them figure it out themselves. Understood. The enforcers maintaining order on site immediately sprang into action, carrying all the critically wounded patients who were still alive out of the clinic to make space for those with lighter injuries. Most of them were already delirious. The remaining conscious ones knew they had been abandoned. Stretchers passed by Chen Ling one after another. He could even clearly see the pain and struggle on their faces, and the despair for life in their hollow eyes. In the midst of the chaos, the boundary between life and death was clearly drawn. This severely wounded beast, humanity, began to actively tear off its rotting flesh in order to survive. The clinic staff found an empty space not far from the street and gathered the abandoned critically wounded patients there. These blood-stained stretchers formed a vast expanse, and the delirious murmurs and painful groans sounded like the continuous death throes of the Grim Reaper. They were quietly awaiting death. What are you doing? Why aren't you saving them? My dad was brought in the earliest. Why aren't you saving him? Why? Those disasters couldn't kill my wife. And you're just letting her wait to die? What kind of doctors are you? How are you any different from those disasters? You're murdering people. ... The family members who had been anxiously waiting outside saw their loved ones being abandoned. And their eyes instantly turned red. They rushed into the clinic like madmen, tackling doctors and nurses who were treating others. And the scene descended into chaos. Shi Renji, who happened to be patrolling nearby, quickly rushed forward, leading several enforcers to stop them. What are you doing? How can you decide who lives and who dies? A family member roared. Too many people are waiting for treatment here. We don't have enough resources or time. If this continues, even more people will die. Then why do they have to be the ones to die? We're all human. Why should they be abandoned? Because their injuries are too severe. But it's not their fault. Shi Renji froze for a moment. He looked at the group of red-eyed family members before him. Knowing that anything he said would be useless now, he waved his hand, signaling the surrounding enforcers to immediately draw their guns and press them against the family members' foreheads. Amidst their terror, they finally quieted down. The enforcers used their guns to disperse all these people outside the clinic. And only then did order return to the clinic. Shi Renji sighed deeply and, seeing Chen Ling also standing at the entrance, walked straight towards him. Are you injured too? No, Chen Ling shook his head. I just came to take a look on my way. Why didn't you step in to maintain order when it got so chaotic just now? I was thinking about something. What? Chen Ling didn't answer. His gaze fell on the abandoned blood-stained stretchers at the street corner. Everything that had happened in the past few days connected in his mind, the sudden withdrawal of raw materials, the closed factories, the vanished communications, the arrival of the fog. After a long silence, he suddenly uttered a sentence that made Shi Renji's blood run cold. Is it possible that we are the ones who have been abandoned? Shi Renji was stunned for a long time. You mean? All of this is a bit too coincidental. Chen Ling looked towards Aurora City. I hope I'm just overthinking it. Shi Renji, hearing Chen Ling's words, frowned and fell into deep thought. The two stood on the steps in front of the clinic, and the air suddenly grew quiet. After a long while, Shi Renji whispered softly. No, that's impossible. The 7 districts have hundreds of thousands of people, and the number of factories accounts for 70% of the entire realm. Without the material production and supply from the 7 districts, Aurora City would be like a disabled person with a severed arm. How could Aurora City abandon us? We'll know once Meng Jie returns. Chen Ling glanced at him. Do you think, if Aurora City was determined to abandon the 3rd district, would Han Meng still be able to return? Chapter 128, Judgment Chief. Half an hour has passed. Outside Aurora City, Han Meng glanced at the time. His brows tightly furrowed. Why is Aurora City still silent? Did you really send the information back to headquarters? I did. Didn't you see it with your own eyes? The enforcement officer guarding the gate replied impatiently. Han Meng's eyes were extremely cold. He had indeed seen the other party send the message with his own eyes. But given the seriousness of the matter, Aurora City should have reacted long ago. There was no reason for it to remain so quiet after such a long time. Just as Han Meng was considering whether to directly force his way through the city gate, a low, thunderous sound echoed, accompanied by flying dust, and the heavy city gate slowly opened. Behind the gate, there was only one figure. It was an enforcement officer also wearing a black trench coat. His aged white hair was as disheveled as a lion's mane, and on the hem of his trench coat, 7 silver stripes shimmered under the sunlight. The moment they saw this person, the several enforcement officers present simultaneously widened their eyes. Even Han Meng felt a shock in his heart, looking at this person with utter confusion. There were only 5 7-striped law enforcers in the entire Aurora City. Each of them held high positions and power, existing beyond the reach of ordinary people. Even these enforcement officers, who had grown up in Aurora City since childhood, had never seen the true appearance of any of them. And now, a 7-striped law enforcer had appeared just behind the city gate. Are you Han Meng? The 7-striped law enforcer glanced at Han Meng and spoke indifferently. Yes. This old man is Ji Yuan. I am here to escort you into the city. Ji Yuan? Han Meng's eyes slightly narrowed. This name was too familiar to him. He was the only 7th-tier practitioner of the Judgment Path in Aurora City, and also the current Chief of Judgment in the world. Years ago, when he first embarked on the Judgment Path, he had heard of Ji Yuan's great reputation. It was said that he presided over the Court of Judgment of Aurora City, possessing the highest authority to judge all disputes and crimes, a being at the pinnacle of Aurora City's judicial system. Now, this legendary figure had personally come to the city gate to escort him into the city? The other enforcement officers looked at Han Meng with immense envy. They couldn't understand why an enforcement officer from the 3rd district could warrant such solemn treatment from the elder Ji Yuan. Enter the city? Although Han Meng was shocked, he was more confused at the moment. He had only come to deliver a message for the 3rd district. Yet it had stirred up a being like Ji Yuan. For a moment, he couldn't figure out Aurora City's true attitude towards the 3rd district. Ji Yuan gave him a faint glance, then turned and walked into Aurora City. Han Meng hesitated for a moment, then followed him. The several enforcement officers guarding the city exchanged glances and silently closed the city gate. With a low, heavy thud, this city, located in the heart of the Aurora domain, once again entered a state of lockdown. Senior Ji Yuan, where are we going? Headquarters. Ji Yuan's reply was very concise. Hearing this, Han Meng hesitated for a moment, then spoke. Although the situation in the 3rd district is severe, it shouldn't be serious enough to alarm an elder like you, should it? Ji Yuan did not answer, merely walking silently towards the headquarters. Han Meng followed behind him, his brows furrowing tighter and tighter. We applied for communication with Aurora City so many times, but there was no response. I originally thought it was because the thick fog was disrupting the signal. But Aurora City doesn't seem to be covered by fog. Han Meng looked up at the clear sky above Aurora City, where beautiful Aurora flowed. Senior, you actually received the 3rd district's plea for help, didn't you? Ji Yuan remained silent. Finally, Han Meng stopped. He took a deep breath, his expression extremely serious. Is Aurora City planning to abandon the 7 districts? Ji Yuan's figure paused slightly. Ellipsis. You're saying Aurora City will be unfavorable to Meng Jie? Shi Renji immediately shook his head. No, that makes no sense at all. Leaving aside whether they would abandon the 7 districts, Meng Jie is a 5th-tier enforcement officer, a top talent even within Aurora City. Why would they target Meng Jie? Meng Jie has already proven his potential. He's no longer the rookie who could be easily manipulated. Chen Ling opened his mouth, wanting to say something more. Chen Ling, you're overthinking it. Shi Renji looked at him gravely. The task Meng Jie gave us before he left was to maintain order in the 3rd district. The 3rd district is already chaotic enough, there's no need to spread meaningless panic. Chen Ling met his gaze for a moment, then shook his head helplessly. I hope I'm overthinking it. These were indeed just Chen Ling's conjectures, without any evidence, but ever since he witnessed what happened at the clinic just now, this conjecture had been lingering in his mind. He even began to consider what he should do if Aurora City truly abandoned the 7 districts. How could he survive? Chen Ling stared blankly at the steps beneath his feet. Seeing this, Shi Renji patted him on the shoulder. Chen Ling, you don't have to push yourself too hard. Your talent is no less than Meng Jie's, and you'll enter Aurora City sooner or later. Perhaps when you get into the city, you'll realize that the 3rd district is just a broken stepping stone. You don't belong here. Chen Ling heard the barely concealed envy in Shi Renji's words and couldn't help but ask in return. Is Aurora City really that good? Good, of course it's good. Shi Renji looked towards a certain direction in the thick fog, nodding firmly. Although I haven't been there, it's definitely not like the 3rd district. It's a paradise-like world. Perhaps only by reaching there can one truly live. Then why don't you go? Me? Shi Renji gave a bitter smile. I'm not like you and Meng Jie. My path is very ordinary, and my talent is even worse. It took me 3 years just to go from 1st tier to 2nd tier. Why would I get into Aurora City? Shi Renji seemed unwilling to continue on this topic, waving his hand and saying, All right, I need to continue patrolling. The western streets are yours. With that, he walked directly towards the eastern streets. His black trench coat moved through the ravaged streets, gradually disappearing into the dim mist. Seeing this, Chen Ling did not linger either and turned to walk towards Han Shuang Street. Along the way, there were broken house doors everywhere, indelible bloodstains, and residents crying in pain on the streets, dragging broken legs or severed limbs. Their injuries were not fatal, so they were all turned away by the clinic and began to clumsily and unprofessionally treat themselves. Chen Ling's gaze swept over them as he continued forward, until he approached Han Shuang Street, where it was as if he had walked from a wartime era into a peaceful one. There were no residents missing arms or legs, not too many ruined houses, and even the air didn't carry much of a bloody smell. Chen Ling took a deep breath of the relatively fresh air and slowly exhaled. Indeed, Han Shuang Street's losses were very small compared to other districts. As Chen Ling walked onto Han Shuang Street, rustling sounds came from the side of the street, and residents cautiously opened their doors one by one. They hid at their doorways, their eyes filled with gratitude as they looked at Chen Ling. Chapter 129 Zhao Shu's Request. The residents of Han Shuang Street were naturally well aware of the current situation in the 3rd district. They had walked through other streets and visited clinics, knowing how severe the casualties were in other areas, no different from a living hell. They, however, were fortunate, not missing any limbs, not critically ill, and most families were even unscathed. All of this was thanks to Chen Ling. They wanted to go and thank Chen Ling, but they were also a bit afraid. After all, the impression Chen Ling had left on them before was too deep, even if he merely looked at them. Their hearts would tremble. Chen Ling also noticed this scene. He looked at these neighbors, full of hesitation and with darting eyes, and couldn't help but find it a bit amusing. Of course, he wasn't interested in taking credit. Instead, he maintained a stern face and continued his patrol, acting as if he didn't see anyone around him, his black trench coat swaying gently in the empty street. But eventually, someone brave stepped out first and walked directly towards Chen Ling. Upon seeing the person's face, Chen Ling felt a little surprised. The first to bravely approach was none other than Boss Shu, the funeral parlor owner, who had been scared unconscious by him in the back mountain before. Boss Shu walked up to Chen Ling, carrying a plastic bag, his expression complex. Chen Ling raised an eyebrow and naturally stopped. Boss Shu, is there something? Chen Ling asked calmly. Chief Chen, on behalf of my entire family, I want to thank you for saving our lives. Boss Shu said solemnly. This is a small token of our appreciation, please accept it. As he spoke, Boss Shu handed the plastic bag to Chen Ling. The corner of Chen Ling's mouth twitched almost imperceptibly, even without opening it. He could guess what was inside. Understood. Chen Ling sighed inwardly, but still braced himself and accepted the bag of chicken hearts. At this rate, his family's food reserves would probably last until the year after next. With Boss Shu leading the way, more and more residents gathered the courage to come forward, either carrying a bag of chicken hearts or duck hearts, or some bloody beast meat. Even more absurd were a few IOUs, on which was written, "Oh Officer Chen Ling, 3 caddies of beast hearts, to be returned within 5 days." Chen Ling hadn't walked a few meters before his hands were full. He had no choice but to go home and drop off the items before continuing his patrol. But when he reached the adjacent Han Shui Street, another group of people came up to give him gifts. If nothing unexpected happened, it was probably those people from Han Shuang Street who had been gossiping and exposed his preferences. Chen Ling felt a bit helpless. After collecting all the items and patrolling all the districts, it was late at night. He dragged his tired body to his doorstep and found that on the quiet street opposite, only one breakfast shop was still lit. He hesitated for a moment but still walked towards the shop. Just as he reached the entrance, he heard a scream from inside. "You little brat, I told you to bear with it." Ah, it hurts. Dad, it really hurts. Are you sure you didn't grab the wrong medicine? Your old man here self-studied medicine when he was young. How could I grab the wrong iodine? Bear with it. This infection is supposed to hurt. Softer, softer, softer. Ah. Chen Ling pushed open the door and saw Zhao Yi lying shirtless on the table, a gruesome knife wound on his body glaringly obvious. At this moment, Zhao Yi's face was pale, and he was wailing incessantly. Zhao Shu, sweating profusely, was disinfecting him with iodine while trying to hide his heartache. But even so, he gritted his teeth and cursed. Now you know it hurts? How many guts did you grow to dare fight an enforcer? Hurt, it's good if it hurts you to death. Hearing the door open, Zhao Yi saw who it was. And his wailing stopped abruptly. He stared at Chen Ling, enduring the pain, and didn't make a sound, like a stubborn duck with its head held high. "Hey Ling, how are you doing?" Zhao Shu asked with concern when he saw Chen Ling fighting those monsters. "Were you injured? Is it serious?" "I'm fine." Chen Ling's gaze fell on Zhao Yi again. The latter clearly couldn't hold back anymore, letting out muffled groans of pain. "Didn't you go to the clinic?" "Sigh, the clinic is full. I saw that those people were more seriously injured, so I didn't go." Zhao Shu wiped the sweat from his forehead. He had finally finished disinfecting and began to carefully bandage Zhao Yi. "It's a good thing I've studied a bit of medicine. I can handle simple wounds." It was clear that Zhao Shu indeed had a background in medicine. The bandaging process went smoothly. Zhao Yi, wrapped like half a zombie, lay on the table like a mummified corpse who had lost his dreams. Zhao Shu let out a long sigh. He looked at his son. His eyes filled with complexity. He walked up to Chen Ling. "Hey Ling, uncle wants to talk to you outside for a bit." Though surprised, Chen Ling didn't refuse. Instead, he followed Zhao Shu out to the street. Zhao Shu glanced back at the room, then closed the door behind him. On the silent, dim street, only a few faint rays of kerosene lamp light shone through the frosted glass door, flickering silently. "What's wrong?" Chen Ling asked. "Hey Ling, uncle only has Xiao Yi. This one child," Zhao Shu said bitterly. "Xiao Yi has been stubborn since he was little. And he's reckless. I originally wanted to find him a stable job, just so he wouldn't cause any major trouble. But this time, he really scared me. I'm just so afraid now. I keep thinking, if that enforcer's knife hadn't missed earlier and had stabbed Xiao Yi's heart, then this child would be like those corpses on the road, never to return." Chen Ling looked down slightly at Zhao Shu. His eyes were clearly red, and after taking a few deep breaths, he managed to calm himself down and continued. "Hey Ling, uncle has lived long enough. I don't have any other desires. I just hope Xiao Yi can be safe and sound. You've been smart and steady since you were little. And now you're an enforcement officer in our 3rd district. Someone who can shake the entire 3rd district with a stomp of his foot. I want to ask if you could use your connections to arrange for Xiao Yi to be by your side? You can order him around however you want on a daily basis. And you don't need to give him any official position, or even the title of enforcer. Even if you send him to your department to be a doorman or do some clerical work. That's fine. I just want him to stay under your protection. To have a shelter." Zhao Shu's back bent lower and lower. He looked into Chen Ling's eyes. His wrinkled face filled with sincerity and pleading. This was an elder setting aside all his dignity to make a request to a junior. "If this makes things difficult for you, then just pretend uncle never mentioned it." Zhao Shu saw that Chen Ling hadn't responded for a long time, and forced a smile. Uncle was just saying it casually. Chen Ling turned his head slightly. He saw a shadow crouching in the corner behind the frosted door, seemingly listening in carefully. He pretended not to see it, withdrew his gaze, and nodded calmly. "Okay, close black lens bracket." Chapter 130. Panic spreads. Chen Ling was not surprised by Zhao Yi's request. Earlier, at the breakfast stall, Zhao Yi had hinted to Chen Ling, hoping he would, for the sake of their childhood friendship, give Zhao Yi some protection, but Zhao Yi's injury this time had truly terrified him. It was understandable that the old man would rather put aside his pride and dignity, turning his hint into a direct plea, asking Chen Ling to protect Zhao Yi. Chen Ling agreed. For him now, arranging a position for Zhao Yi within the enforcer system was not a difficult task, it was merely a word. Hearing Chen Ling agree, it was as if a heavy burden of several hundred caddies had been lifted from Zhao Yi, and he felt much lighter. He continuously thanked Chen Ling, even offering to give him the entire breakfast stall, but Chen Ling refused it all. "It's just a small favor." Chen Ling waved his hand. After Chen Ling finished speaking, he bid farewell to Zhao Yi and walked straight home. Behind the frosted door, the halo of the kerosene lamp swayed in the room, and Zhao Yi, covered in bandages and leaning against the wall, had moist, red eyes. On the dim street, a man pulling a rickshaw hurried towards the mist-shrouded back mountain. "How much longer until we arrive?" a woman in her 30s, holding an infant still in swaddling clothes, asked softly from the rickshaw. The man wiped sweat from his neck with a towel and replied, Soon. About another hour. Okay. I say, sister, why are you going to the 2nd district in the middle of the night? My child is sick. He must have been frightened by those monsters. The woman said bitterly, stroking the child's hot forehead in her arms. The clinics in the 3rd district are all crowded. And doctors won't even see him. So, you're crossing districts to see a doctor for your child? The man nodded. You sit tight. I'll speed up a bit more. The child's health is important. With that, the man gritted his teeth and accelerated again. Sweat dripping from his body like rain. Pulling the rickshaw quickly towards the 2nd district. After speeding for several tens of minutes, the man's stamina gradually ran out. He pulled the rickshaw along the desolate road, surrounded by thick fog, with everything within his field of vision a vast expanse of white. Sir, are you sure we're on the right path? The woman asked with some concern. Don't worry, I've walked this path hundreds of times, I wouldn't get it wrong even with my eyes closed. But why is it so quiet here? It's the middle of the night. Everyone's probably asleep, right? As the man spoke, he suddenly felt his foot slip, and he stumbled and fell to the ground, letting out a groan. Are you all right? I'm fine. What is this on the ground? It feels sticky? The man mumbled, propping himself up with his hands to stand. The kerosene lamp hanging on the rickshaw swayed slightly. He grabbed the handlebars, about to continue forward, when he suddenly froze in place. Unbeknownst to him, his hands were already covered in crimson. Blood? The woman couldn't help but exclaim, pointing below him. The man lowered his head and found that, at some point, the street beneath him was soaked with blood. He looked up in bewilderment, picked up the kerosene lamp from the rickshaw, and walked forward. The dim, yellow light of the kerosene lamp dispelled the darkness in the thick fog. And the outline of a hill gradually appeared before his eyes. This. The man's pupils involuntarily dilated. In the dim light, severed hands were scattered and stuck into the hill. Like thorns growing, broken heads were piled together, resembling a hill of human bodies strung together with hair and internal organs. An eyeball, dislodged from its socket, was held in the palm of a severed hand, staring directly at the man. At this moment, the man's heart stopped. He opened his mouth wide, instinctively falling backward onto the ground, then scrambling to his feet with a cry of alarm. Unbeknownst to him, the entire 2nd district had already fallen into a dark, deathly silence. Only a mountain of corpses several hundred meters high stood in a sea of blood. ... What's that sound outside? Xianxia, who was organizing data on casualties in his office, suddenly looked up at the sudden commotion outside the window, a hint of confusion flashing in his eyes. Chief Xi, something's happened. An enforcer rushed in from outside. A rickshaw puller took someone to the 2nd district and found that everyone in the entire district had been slaughtered and piled into a mountain of corpses. What? Xianxia suddenly stood up from his seat. The 2nd district was completely wiped out? It's not just the 2nd district, we also sent people to the 4th district, and there are basically no survivors there either. Xianxia's face immediately changed. He paced back and forth in his office, his heart sinking to the bottom. The scope of this Grey Realm convergence actually covered 3 large districts? No, this was just what had been discovered. Other, more distant large districts might also have been affected. If that were the case, then the scale of this disaster was truly far beyond imagination, not just a simple 3rd district. Suddenly, Xianxia remembered Chen Ling's deduction from earlier today, and his face began to turn pale. How are the citizens? Panic. The enforcer swallowed. This news spread too quickly. Although most still don't believe it, many have already spontaneously gone to the 2nd district and 4th district to verify. It won't be long before it's completely confirmed. This is bad. Xianxia knew very well that once the citizens learned the truth, they would inevitably fall into panic, and the order that had been so painstakingly maintained would completely collapse. He put on his black trench coat and hurried out. As soon as he stepped out of the headquarters main gate, he heard people running and shouting outside. The streets of the 3rd district, which had already fallen asleep, were now lighting up little by little. This district was gradually being awakened by fear. Old Man Li? He's probably dreaming, isn't he? Exactly. An entire district of people killed and piled into a mountain of corpses? Don't be so ridiculous. It's true. My 2nd uncle just ran over to see, and he was almost scared to death. He said when he ran back. He even heard monsters roaring in the streets of the 2nd district. The 4th district also seems to be empty? Is the scope of this calamity attack really that wide? So, those monsters are still in the 2nd district and 4th district, and could rush into our 3rd district at any time? More and more residents were awakened in the dead of night, having just struggled out of life and death. Their faces turned pale upon hearing this news. They gathered together, talking amongst themselves, and an unprecedented panic began to spread rapidly. This can't go on. Shi Renji's expression was extremely grave. We must first appease the people. Gather them as much as possible, I'll take responsibility. Before Shi Renji could finish speaking, an enforcer rushed in from the headquarters. A message has come from Aurora City. What? Shi Renji's eyes lit up. What does it say? I don't know, only you have permission to read that message.